Start recording, start streaming. All right. Hello, and welcome to. Whoa, hold up just a second. My screen got messed up. Okay, here we are. Welcome to Regenerative Revolution. We are here with Isaiah Urth. This is his second session. So today we are talking about his purpose and vision, and if we can get to it, we'll talk about his value proposition for his organization, UrthKynd. So here we go. Let's just start with a little check-in. How are you doing, Isaiah?
Doing amazing. Happy to be here. Had a great morning. Made an amazing smoothie, and yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I went to the Earth Garden this morning and did some gardening. Had just
Oh,
enough time
beautiful.
to shove some food in my face and get on online with you. So I'm good. A little frazzled though. Settling in. Yeah, let me just reset some context for anybody who's new. We're live streaming right now on Twitch. Looks like I don't have anybody in the audience at the moment because we haven't done a lot of promoting yet. This is very new. But I got this all set up and ready to go. If anybody comes in, I've got my chat open so I can see the chat room. I've got this question app, which is underneath the video. If people can see it, you can ask a question. Sorry. I'll be able to see it and get to it. So, I would really love to be able to make this more of a conversation with people who are interested in being involved, but we got to build up to that. So we're working on it. Okay, so right now we're just gonna talk with Isaiah about his plans for his organization here. So we'll start just with kind of a brainstorming session of what it is that you want to create with this. Like, what are the outcomes that you want?
Okay, so I have some things kind of written down that I'm working on kind of piecing together into a more something that flows a little more, bearing in mind it's a relatively new organization in the sense that diving into the actual social work and not just doing the gardening, the policy change and getting the message out there to as many people in our communities that we can. So some of the things that I have written down, and these are things taken from various missions and people that I admire. And it really comes down to an ending food apartheid, ending the sort of the disadvantages in our food systems, a more equitable and self-reliant regenerative food system that is that preserves and protects indigenous knowledge, cultivates diversity and agriculture biodiversity, a system that we can even call it a new normal that will protect our environment and also be regenerative in nature, that it can sustain itself. And the people working for it. It's important that I'm a huge believer in co-op models. It's something I'm really interested in, and I've been studying a lot about it and how to structure them. And I really love that. I love the idea of everyone owning a piece of something that they're working for, especially if they're going to work that job for so long. And I also have here campaign for regenerative farmers. And a regenerative centered approach to farming. People-centric regenerative food systems is another one. And really the ultimate goal is to accomplish the ending of the food apartheid, and to begin restoring our earth. We're going to need, I believe, a national reform. Defunding of the commodity crops, like we spoke about in our, you were speaking about that. That's a huge one. And reinvesting that into regenerative practices and education, especially in our cities and inner cities where people really have no idea where food comes from. Like the average American, really. no idea where food comes from and the benefits of organic versus inorganic and the studies that have been done. So I love General Mills, how they've really invested in regenerative, and they have this huge commitment to be regenerative.
Yeah, they bought what was it, Amy's and Epic? Was that the combo?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
remember. Yeah.
they bought the Epic, the grass fed meat, you know, the
Oh yeah.
pastured meat, and then also I think it was Amy's Organics there, or Annie's,
Wow.
either Amy's or Annie's, and they were going to
Yeah.
grow the grain and then rotate it with the animals.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
that's phenomenal. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, and when you have the funds, and the ability to do things like that, I mean, you can make change like, I mean, just amazing, huge
Yeah.
change. I think it was like 1 million acres regenerative by a certain, it was a huge, huge goal. I
Yeah.
really loved it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I so want to go on this tangent because, like, that reminds me of Nestle buying Garden of Life and Vital Proteins, and that actually pissed me off because I don't think they have good intentions.
Mm.
I think
Oh,
they're
that's really
actually, yeah, I think
unfortunate.
they're actually lowering the standards. But
Oh, that's horrible.
yeah,
And
I
they'll
don't,
lose
I've
customers.
been boycotting Nestle for decades. Like, I don't trust them at all.
Mm.
But anyway, that's a tangent. Okay, okay.
Mm.
Take down Nestle.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nestle's got a very poor track record,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
buying up our water and lobbying to buy up all our lakes and turn it and export it. And oh yeah, the list is very
Oh
long.
yeah. I mean, child slavery. I mean, it just goes on and on. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Let's see. Okay, so I mean, a lot of what you said is kind of big picture. So I'm also wondering about, more, like practical steps. What are the smaller things that you could like point to and say, I did that?
Mm. Definitely um, securing more land and more resources for community gardens,
Hmm.
um, and education programs. Um, um, let's see, that's a pretty big one because
Yeah, and
you
that's a
get
lot
one
of
of those.
work right
It's a
there.
lot of work, yeah. And when you get, let's say if you have one in every
Uh-huh.
community, I think you begin to see more cohesiveness in community. You can even begin to see communities that really don't mesh all the time, that
Hmm.
don't get a lot of exposure to each other. Like I always think about growing up in South Central, and then later on in my teens, when um, my mom and stepfather had saved and saved and saved, and we moved to the South Bay, and that's like 8 miles away. Like I would it's like a 10 minute, 15-minute drive.
Hmm.
Well, not in LA traffic, but when there's no
Yeah.
traffic, you could zoom to be at the beach in 15 minutes from South Central,
Uh-huh.
and this was a totally new experience for me. So that I was around a new type of friends
Hmm.
that I'd never really had before. Got really into like skate culture and surf culture, and these were things that were just so foreign to me. Like I only went to the beach maybe a handful of times growing up, and but the food was different, the food access was different, and the way that I saw the community interacting and the neighbors coming over like, hey, nice to meet you, and I knew my neighbor, that was all so different to me. And I think the farming or growing of food and educating community and things like that, a lot of people want to be involved with that in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
And I see those two communities really coming together to do things, because people have different tastes. Um, like in Mississippi, our idea was going for um, conventional and Asian vegetables as well. I, I love it. Anything also that's purple, but also like a soul food garden,
Hmm.
and yeah. So food is amazing. It crosses all cultural divides. So.
Hmm. Okay. Cool. Okay, so the next question is, what does your enterprise do in concrete terms, like the day-to-day activities of your organization?
Mm, I guess a very broad answer would be working to end. So we work to end food apartheid. We work to advance principles of social justice and common good in the food system.
Uh-huh.
And right now, the focus is really on the community gardening aspect.
Okay, so the first two things you said are not concrete. Those are very vague.
Mhm.
The third thing, community gardening, that makes sense. But like, what are you actually doing to end food apartheid?
So definitely is investing more in the branding and the not so much the branding, but getting our digital, social media, websites, things like that up and running,
Digital
because that
media.
digital media, yeah, because that will facilitate the educational documents and you know getting our message out there.
Hmm.
I've definitely ramped up the social media, but it's
Hmm.
something that I need help with, to be frank. Like I need to get more. Um, I need to learn more about it.
Hmm.
Um, so day to day, every day, basically what I'm working on now is I sourced out free resources for mulch, for compost, um, quality soil that's affordable. Um, and I've basically coordinated all of that into a central point.
Hmm.
And by the end of this, within another 2 weeks, there should be about 20 yards of both there. So now basically I'm focusing on the fundraising and getting the funds to get it all moved and get all of our pots, or maybe get them donated. And then we've got some seed, but the majority of the seed I have is for donating and getting out. But I can also use some of it for a community garden. So that's kind of the plan. It's just putting all these pieces together, but also simultaneously trying to do some community. And they're not huge community gardens,
Hmm.
but they're enough to facilitate, uh, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 families could grow there and eat from that garden. So trying to do this simultaneously in other communities as well, because I see it being like a huge priority based on what we've seen recently with food, and just lines just for miles long, going to food banks. And
Hmm.
it's been very hard, particularly, for
Hmm.
all of us, but
Hmm.
particularly here in LA
Hmm.
with the pandemic. So
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so I'm curious about the logistics of organizing these gardens. So, I mean, are you going to have kind of employees who are like there on a regular basis, or is this going to be more like education based where you're having like regular classes and that's how you get people out and get them involved? Kind of how do you imagine that happening?
so I definitely imagine maybe families and individuals having different plots, um, regular workshops and educational events, even if they have to be online. Um, just having demos, also like a local CSA, or
Hmm.
like a free pickup service where food can be distributed. Maybe even food that is still good, but that would normally be thrown away, but perfectly good food. So we upcycle it. We aggregate the food from other resources around the community, and then package that with healthy, farm produce, and a flyer or whatever it is to keep getting the word out.
Yeah. So, I mean, would you be like a food bank?
Probably similar to that, yeah,
Hmm.
similar to a food bank, more so a regenerative food bank, yeah,
Okay.
because a lot of the food, I mean, not the staples, but a lot of the fruits and vegetables, things like that, produced locally.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of combining a food bank with a garden is a really good idea, especially if the garden is a big focus of it.
Hmm.
It's not just like, oh, there's a food bank that has a couple of beds sitting out the side. It's like there's a big garden and then there's a food
Hmm.
bank that operates out of it. I think that's a good
Hmm.
idea.
Yeah, one thing I always wanted to do, and I never got a chance to do it, I mean, we did it in a sense, but every time we'd have an abundance of food, we would donate some to the local food bank, and they were 40. There were some very close, but usually the Eugene Food Bank.
Mhm. Mhm.
When I lived in Oregon, and I always wanted to have just a huge plot that said, "Hey, this is for this food bank. This is for that organization." And
Mhm.
but it's hard to do that with just one or two people, and occasional
Right.
volunteers. It takes real structure. So.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I've got quite a bit of experience, both getting food from food banks because I've been an activist a lot,
Mhm.
and I've been a community organizer who's not getting paid. So I have used food banks a lot, and
Yeah.
I also
Mhm.
worked for food banks, and I've also been involved in like collecting food, including like dumpster diving and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
There was
Mhm.
in Boulder, there's an organization called Boulder Food Rescue, and they have people riding around with bike trailers picking up food from the um, grocery stores and delivering it to the food banks.
Wow.
And I mean, that's kind of cool, but I mean, it's also I don't want to talk shit on them, but like they're doing it for themselves. They're keeping a lot of it for themselves. A lot of the food ended up in the housing co-ops, which is exactly what I would do, and it is what I did when I was collecting food like that.
Mhm.
But and then the stuff you don't want to, you take to the food bank. But I mean, there's a lot of food out there to be had for sure, and food from good grocery stores like Natural Grocers. We donate
Wow.
a lot. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, because it always kind of sucked, the idea of having to have a truck to go around and pick up food because
Mhm.
I don't have a truck. Oh, we got to find somebody with a truck, but they used bike trailers. I thought that was kind of cool.
Wow. Yeah, I like that. I like
Uh-huh.
that. That's great.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, wait. Let me write that out then. Collecting food from. Well, I kind of said that. Uh, yeah, like grocery stores and farms, that sort of thing. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. Great. Yeah, like the seconds from farms and stuff like that. There's a lot that gets wasted and whatnot.
I need to. I'd love to pick your brain more about that. I mean, I'm sure there's some resources or something on YouTube and online, but you've had experience actually doing it,
Hmm.
and I love the idea. I have some neighbors in my community who we've been speaking a lot lately about turning front yards into gardens or herb gardens, or one neighbor was curious about doing it for corn, but we just don't quite understand the laws, the rules, the regulations. But the push for this, these conversations have been around due to the food insecurity and the issues that we've seen in the supply chain,
Hmm.
and the recent food shocks and things due to COVID.
Hmm.
And it's really increased the amount of conversations I've seen around community resiliency. Every zip code, in my opinion, this sounds extreme, but every zip code should have a farm that supports the community. And maybe it can't be the bulk of what everyone eats, but it can definitely support our most vulnerable. And there's people who appear very well off right now. I'm sure in every community, who appear like everything on the outside is great, but they're starving and they're hungry, and food access is a problem now. You know,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, yeah,
I'd love to learn more about that from you.
yeah. Cool. Thanks. Well, and yeah, I think education is such a big part of it too, because I've
Mm,
heard so many excuses, and like
yeah.
working at grocery stores and like having these conversations with customers who come in like, oh yeah, I want to eat healthy, but it's so expensive. I'm like, do you want to see my food budget? Do you want
Mm,
to see it? Because I've been eating 100% organic for years, and I spend less than $100 a month for me and my daughter, or $100 a week for
mm,
me and my daughter, because I eat meat and vegetables. Like it's not that expensive if you're not buying all of these fancy like pre-made processed packaged foods. Like
oh yeah.
it's really not. I mean, yeah, you need to cook, or like, oh, I don't have time to cook. It takes me 15 minutes to make a meal. You
Hmm.
throw it in a pan and stir fry it. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to be a gourmet cook to cook
Hmm.
to cook a meal. And yeah, it takes some practice to learn how to make a stir fry, but it's not that hard.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
some people who've never experienced that, never even seen somebody make a stir fry, they never even considered it, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, like, you don't even know that that's a possibility, but it is, like, you can make your own food out of meat and vegetables, like, 3 meals a day, and it's not going to take you any more time than to watch one TV show.
Mhm.
Like,
Or you get an Instapot. Instapots are amazing.
exactly.
I'm a huge fan of those. And another thing, um, I learned this. So when I was sort of on a healing journey many years ago, and doctors told me the only thing I could take for that, for that issue was, pharmaceuticals. And I went on this sort of healing journey, and I discovered these amazing, like, naturopathic doctors and things like that. Amy Myers was one of them, and learned about this book called the Autoimmune Solution.
Hmm.
And the doctor had scheduled me an appointment for, I think, 3 weeks down the road, to that I needed to make my decision. Am I going to take a chemo pill quarterly, or am I going to take a high dose steroid to, basically, so that my joints didn't hurt from
Hmm.
rheumatoid arthritis? And I was terrified. It's like, I don't want to be hooked on this forever. And I started doing all this research, and in finding this book, I ordered it like next day delivery.
Hmm.
And it was just immediate relief, because I was eating a lot of the foods that, and you still using chemical products, and in my shampoos and conditioners and colognes, and just things you don't really think about.
Hmm.
And when I made that shift, my body responded in a way that was just like so empowering, and I had so much, just food to me. Food is just, it's totally just medicine. And when I went back to the doctor and I showed him this book and I said, "Hey, check this out. I'm seeing good progress with this. I'm going to wait." He actually became very angry, and he fired me as a patient.
Hmm.
And they wouldn't help me anymore within that sort of network. That was a whole network of health people. So yeah, huge proponent of natural.
Yeah, you
uh,
gotta find good supportive doctors slash nutritionists, naturopaths. Yeah.
when it's all we know.
I
It's
know.
all we know. you know
Doctors.
Yeah. But one thing that saved me, I think, a lot of money and a lot of time was, preparing huge salads and
Mm.
having, making it a point to have 2 salads every day,
Hmm.
along with everything else, and then you just take whatever else you want and you
Yeah.
just put it in a wrap or something, and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had just a minute ago, I had a big pile of spinach with 2 egg or 3 eggs on top.
Mm, sounds good.
Breakfast.
Yeah.
And some ranch,
Hmm.
like, it takes 10 minutes to make 3 eggs and throw it on some greens. So, yeah, awesome. Oh, and there's also, I mean, I totally get that, if you are really in poverty, you don't have pans, you don't have a spatula, you don't have the basic necessities that it takes to do these things. I've been in that situation where, I moved like every 6 months for most of my adult life, and you just lose everything over and over and over again.
Mm.
And then, oh God, I had one of those. I had a pan. You got to
Mhm.
start over. I get that people can be in that situation as well, where they're just constantly having to start over, and or they have crappy stuff. They have like scratched up Teflon pans. You don't
Exactly.
even want to
Yeah.
cook in that.
Well, I know. Yeah, I know people who are doing well and they still have scratched up Teflon pans. It's like, what are you
Yeah,
doing? Don't you know this stuff is so poisonous?
I
And people
know.
just don't know. We've been
Hmm.
lied to. We've been
Hmm.
lied to for so long. And I
Yeah.
think, the norm needs to be that education. I think when
Right.
everyone starts
Yeah.
opening their eyes and waking up, it's like,
Yeah.
it's going to be a
Yeah. The
tsunami.
education to know all you need is a cast iron skillet and a flipper. That's all you need, and a
True.
knife. You
Yeah.
don't need all of these fancy kitchen gadgets. You
Yeah.
need those 3 things.
Unless you're susceptible to like hemochromatosis or something, and you bioaccumulate iron at an
Oh,
abnormally
right.
crazy level, then you switch to like ceramic or something like that. I think ceramic,
Yeah.
right, can be pretty safe. Or yeah,
Yeah, the
ceramic.
ceramic lined ones. I'm
Yeah.
curious about those like copper lined ones.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't I don't know what they use to like bind it and make it slick.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's insane that we've got to consider all of this. That the
Oh yeah.
norm can't just be
Yeah.
companies don't do that, or the government's going to put you out of business. We need to see a complete shift. And it's
Yeah.
like, how do we work towards that? How do we work towards that policy change to where it's not even on the spectrum that they can consider putting these chemicals
right.
in things that children.
There are companies that have that mindset, like
Yes.
natural grocers, and
Yes.
some of the companies that natural grocers carries,
Hmm.
they do research and they show you the research. Like you
Right.
walk in there and it's just like, oh, here's research backing why we made these decisions, and or like now just tested a bunch of products they bought off Amazon to see if it actually contained what they said it contained and like publish that information. Like
Love it.
you want to make your customers healthy, and it ends up benefiting you as a company, and there's more and more thinking that way. But it has been so much in the past, just like, oh, if we can get away with selling this to people, we'll make money.
A little more margin.
Yeah.
Just 3% more. It really adds up over,
Yeah.
when you're a multi-billion-dollar company. So
You can trick people into buying this,
yeah.
which is why, like, I don't trust Nestle. Like, they bought Garden of Life, and I heard that they started putting GMOs and selling the GMO versions to Walmart. And they package it exactly the same as the non-GMO versions they sell to us.
My goodness.
So you can't tell the difference, but it's cheaper. Oh, so this is cheaper at Walmart. Yeah, because it's a lower quality product.
Yeah. Wow.
That kind of stuff. It's just like, what mentality do these companies have? But that can be built into, I think, the structure, which is what we're trying to do here, is build companies that have the structure to support being purpose driven. Which is what we're trying to get to. Sorry, we're like talking, which is fine. We can take as many sessions as we want to get through this. I think it's fun.
Absolutely. Well, I think we need more sessions, particularly on exactly like what we're talking about here is the ABCs of health, and kind of what are the different health kind of means something different to everyone, but get it maybe a panel of people on to talk about health hacks, and maybe even some of these companies out here that are doing amazing things, and some that kind of don't have a great track record.
Yeah, we can have conversations. Let's keep moving with your organization. So, okay, talking about how your enterprise operates, like as in like values and standards. Like what are the kind of things that you want this organization to uphold, like in its day-to-day operations, like kind of stepping back from this like big vision, but like day-to-day operations. What's the what do you want people to be keeping in mind when they're making decisions?
I would say that the end result, if we keep in mind the end result, which is cultivating this social justice and regenerative agricultural systems, because the end result actually is happier, healthier people.
Okay.
The end result, after the vision is totally accomplished, as huge of a vision as it might be, a farm, a regenerative farm on every city block, or something equivalent of that, that we start seeing communities and people and health turn around completely.
Okay, cool. So yeah, like I'm kind of going for a list of 3 to 5 kind of core values or standards. So like happier, healthier people, regenerative farming.
Definitely cultivating and honoring diversity, and so the racial diversity, class diversity in our class, in our diet preferences, and a diversity in our faiths, in our just accepting of everyone from all walks of life, and honoring everyone like we do our UrthKynd. That the company, the vision, the whole company, the whole name is really rooted in kindness, and that's kindness to the earth and kindness to one another. So keeping that, driving that, that purpose.
Okay, cool. Well, and I also like the first thing you said, like keeping in mind the end result. Like there, you could say that that's a principle of like with whatever you do, consider the end result. What's
Mm-hmm.
this going to lead to down the road?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I like that. Okay. So we're going to do a little brainstorm of some words and phrases that describe the most important value that your enterprise creates. So, I mean, the purpose of this is that you kind of end up with this word bank that when you're trying to come up with copy or a tagline or something, that you can just like pull these words. Oh, these are the things that I like to throw in there to get people's attention or communicate what it is that I'm trying to create. So yeah, let's just like think up words.
So regenerative and sustainable are the first two that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times when people say sustainable, they mean regenerative.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's kind of a newer word and a newer concept, at least in the mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
people still use sustainable. But sustainable to me just doesn't, I don't like that
Yeah.
word.
When I do say it, I say beyond sustainable.
Beyond sustainable. Yeah, see, that's something that people can immediately understand. Whereas regenerative, you usually have to explain it, a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's see. I actually have a document, I believe, with I think I put taglines.
Yeah. If you already have that kind of thing, get that in here.
So one of them actually that stands out is so there's food justice. I think we said. So food justice movement. There is also food justice has actually really been, I think agricultural anthropologists or something have coined the term food apartheid. And the definition is interesting because it says that, well, actually, no, food desert. The word food desert has been replaced with food apartheid.
Oh.
And I like it because it says food apartheid is a form of apartheid because in most cases, the lack of ability of healthy food disproportionately affects communities of color. Under these conditions, which are overtly abusive, whole communities are geographically and economically isolated from healthy food options. And I love the term also food sovereignty. And it was very ironic because when I lived in rural Oregon, I recall basically being surrounded by farms, almost in every direction. There were gardeners and farmers and things like that, but there were elements of that community, that town of 1,200 people that were very food insecure and struggling with poverty. And the community I would say 99% Caucasian. So it was kind of looking at it from a different side, from a whole different spectrum, that food insecurity exists really in marginalized, communities and impoverished communities. And those happen to be, at least in that part of the country or state, where the majority of a lot of the foster children were. And a lot of the children that were struggling, that actually really needed that food. And as a result, we saw, I think the county I was in the top 3 for like degenerative diseases and heart disease, diabetes, and cancers and things like that.
Okay, so that gets me to words like health. Is there some other words like health that we could add to the list?
Health apartheid, health equality,
health equality,
health equity.
Equity,
yeah. I was still looking for that document.
Okay.
Independent. Indigenous, biodiversity, permaculture. Social justice, common good. let's see. Oh, restorative justice.
Mm-hmm.
Community, cultivating community.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga. This would be great. This would be great to have a few other people here to chime in right now.
Yeah, I think we might have one viewer. Viewer, if you want to chime in, please.
Yeah. Because I could keep going, but I just...
Yeah, totally. Okay, so the thing that I wanted to do with this right now is look at your purpose statement. I don't know if you have a purpose statement currently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of missions I'm playing with that. One is more concise, and then one kind of leads into the vision. Mission. Well, this one's kind of a long mission, but I put we are a food justice coalition whose mission is to end food apartheid and uproot systematic racism and inequality in our food system. Together with like-minded nonprofits, mentors, think tanks, and decision makers, we work to drive harmonious, systematic change and bring an end to food apartheid. I said that word twice, so I should probably take it out in the first sentence. But
okay, hold on. I almost got it all together with like-minded nonprofits, mentors, think tanks, and what?
Oh, decision makers. Kind of wanted to say government there, but decision makers could include corporations.
Okay, then we what?
We work to drive harmonious, systematic change and bring an end to food apartheid.
Okay. And did you have another one?
So the vision I put that we're a grassroots organization focused on cultivating stronger, healthier communities. And to us, this means improving access to nutrient-dense food, improving health outcomes, providing educational experiences.
Here, hold on just a second. I've got increasing access to
nutrient-dense food.
Nutrient-dense food. Okay, keep going from there. I can type pretty fast, almost as fast as you can talk. But oops.
No worries.
I clicked away from it just a second. No, don't full screen. Hold on, I need to move my screen up. Okay, go ahead.
Improving health outcomes, providing educational experiences. Period. With community power, sustainable gardens, or regenerative gardens, I should say, and education. We aim to influence collective action for one of the most basic of human rights, and then comma, food.
Okay, I like that.
And then, and then the last part, just wrapping up.
Good.
In doing so, we will together improve health outcomes and access to affordable food within historically underserved communities. That was a lot. I'm really working to bring that down a little.
Yeah, no, well, it's not a page long, so that's good. That's good. Okay, so yeah, that's good for a mission and vision. So for me, a purpose statement is something even shorter. It's the kind of thing that you could just say in conversation. Like, are we blank? Is this blank? Does this decision blank? So it's like,
just be kind.
Sorry.
Just be kind.
Just be kind.
Does that work? That's kind of my slogan.
Yeah, I mean, you can use something like that. I like it to be a little bit more, like, what's the purpose of the organization? The purpose of this organization is to, and can you get it down to like 8 words or less?
I'll take that last sentence. Improve health outcomes, and access to affordable food within historically underserved communities.
Okay.
I mean, the deeper vision is policy change on, a city level, state level, national level, but that's going to take a lot of work. So to put that out there right away, it sounds like, wow, well, you're just starting out. How are you going to do this as a tiny little organization who's, we're still trying to get a website going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really like that. I mean, I count like 9 words that aren't like and two, I don't count those. So that's close enough. And then, improving health outcomes and improving access to affordable food. Those are both measurable. So that bonus points on that. You can actually measure those outcomes. And then within historically underserved communities specifies who you're doing this for. So that is really specific. So yeah, I really, really like that.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
And we want to include every community. I mean, like I said, I've got friends and family, and
right.
Everywhere, but
right. They might not need the increase in like access. They might already have access.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Right.
But in the midst of, who knows, economic uncertainty and all those things, it's like, hey, people may very well want a farm on every city block eventually. So
yeah, no, I think it's a good focus. That's good. Okay, and then one last question in this section. What would happen if your enterprise fulfills this purpose? What would change in a measurable way? Maybe like what are the metrics for that change in improving the health outcomes and the access? What would you actually measure?
Definitely employment, generational wealth, communities that are more connected, or I should say conscious, with their food choices and their choices towards, the earth. We might see less lawns and more food. We would definitely see a decrease in degenerative diseases and illnesses that can be healed or prevented with food, or I should say reversed or prevented with access and education about food. We would definitely see a lot less, I would even say stronger immune systems. We would see less, I don't know, when I think about a whole community with super strong immune systems, I wonder how this pandemic would have affected communities like that. How are the blue zones communities being affected? And the super healthy who have access to, nutrient dense foods and salads and smoothies and things like that. Sometimes even with the education, people don't do the right thing. I know I make mistakes sometimes.
Sure.
I splurge and I binge. But,
yeah. Well, and I think it's also an interesting little thing to take into consideration that I think a lot of the people who do those super healthy things, like drink smoothies all the time and all of this, some of those people do it because they have underlying health issues. They were forced to do it. So they actually do still have, some immune compromised, things going on, even though they do eat super healthy. Quite a few people, who come into natural grocers are like that. Yep. So just because somebody's eating healthy doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to get sick.
Right. It betters our odds a little bit, I think.
If you do it and you're healthy,
Sure.
But almost nobody's really healthy. Like how many people, like, even me, like, growing up, I ate too much sugar and dairy, and I had I thought was allergies, bad allergies growing up, but it was actually because I was eating too much sugar and dairy. I made myself sick, and I'm still recovering from that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really a journey. I think it and everybody has to take a first step, and with the education, at least hey, when I start getting these joint pains and inflammation, and I know that, hey, this doesn't feel like it's from a workout, I know, well, I ate something that I probably shouldn't have eaten. For me, was probably gluten, and it was probably heavily processed. Like I went to the bakery, or I went to the ice cream place, and I can do those things pretty regularly before my body reacts now. But I know deep down that, hey, that's an inflammatory process. And really the 5 core things, pillars of health. When we see that, it's nutrition, community, sleep, stress management, and movement. And when you look at sort of the present state that we're in, let alone even before the pandemic, people were already struggling. People have always been, we always have that element of sight of it struggling. But when your finances aren't right and the economy is kind of doing these crazy things in the job market, it's hard to really focus on having all those pillars aligned,
Yeah. It's so hard. And you don't even know, and people come in all the time saying, oh, I need more energy. Give me some energy supplement. I'm like, are you taking vitamin D? How much time do you spend in the sun? Like people don't even know what it is that's causing these issues,
It's a lack of energy supplements that cause.
Right.
Yeah,
like, okay, let's make sure you're getting all of
years.
your nutrients first, and then we'll talk about, some sort
Red
of
Bull.
energy supplement. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How many people are treating a vitamin D deficiency with Red Bull right now?
Or coffee.
Millions of people.
Yeah. Or even but the vitamin B, for that reason, for that matter, lack of vitamin B, I guess, you can wake up feeling sluggish and be tired, right? Or you have the adrenal fatigue, which is extremely common, and you reach for coffee every morning because it gives you that little extra thing, and then it becomes a habit. And then if it's not organic coffee, it's got the pesticides. So you've got to look at all these little things. If it is organic, it's going to further deplete you of vitamin B and affect your thyroid. So it's really not the best choice. So it's the education piece is so huge.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Alrighty. And that last question was kind of leading towards a vision statement. You already have that. So, okay. So we did that. We've got we've only got 10 minutes left, and I have this other section. So let's do kind of a little bit of a debrief on what we just talked about and talk about what we're going to talk about next time, because there might be some things that you can think about to get ready for next time.
Okay.
How about that? Okay, so we just talked about the purpose and vision of your organization, what it is you're trying to accomplish, and next we're going to talk about value proposition, which means what it is that you're offering to customers or members, however you're describing the people that you're serving. So, I mean, from their perspective, what is it that you're handing them? And that might look different than what you think you're creating, right? So, some questions we're going to look at are who are your customers, or, if you want me to use the word members, I can do that. And what do they care about? What do they pay attention to? What are their pains and their desires that you're trying to alleviate and fulfill? How do you want them to feel? Stuff like that. What is it that you want to give them, and how is it going to make their lives different from their perspective? And then, looking at what the actual product is, what is it that you want them to sign up for? What's your ask? Okay, do this, show up at this class, or, what is it that you actually want them to do to be involved in this? And then how does that relate to your overall vision and the the outcomes that they're going to get from it?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep. So that's really deep. That I'm probably going to have to, I can probably ramble off some bullet points, but it's not going to flow in a way that's going to sound great.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm coming back and forth because I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. And on the one hand, I don't want to just give you this list of questions and have you sit down and write out all of the answers, because then what's the point of us having a conversation? I want to be able to riff on it and discuss it, but on the other hand, like you said, if you just kind of riffed without thinking about it ahead of time, then, it might not be as good of an answer as you could come up with if you had a little bit more thought to put into it. So let's try, I just gave you some info, and if you want to look at the video, you could actually see the questions, but if you could, not get too like nitpicky about exactly how you want to answer them and just think about it in general. That would be great.
Yeah. Like coming from the heart, I can definitely, okay, so let me just give it a brief shot, but
Sure.
it's the delivery is what I struggle with. So we definitely want to represent diverse communities, communities of color, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And we want to honor those communities because those are the ones that have been more so historically marginalized. However, working, like I said, in rural Oregon, having seen that food and health disparities affect all of us, especially those who are impoverished, we want to include and honor all people, and our LGBT community here locally in Los Angeles, just a few miles sort of from West Hollywood, which has huge, pride movement and things like that, that really inspire, those movements really inspire me because they're people coming from the heart to stand up against a lot of oppression. And those are the things that really resonate with me. And they're part of my, they're really a part of growing up in LA and having lived in Koreatown and Chinatown. It's like, all over LA. So my ultimate kind of goal is bringing together these diverse communities to heal the land and practice regenerative agriculture, health and environmental justice, and inspire people to become the change that we need to see in the generations moving ahead to accomplish this, the movements that we need to have going for food sovereignty and for food sovereignty. So.
Yeah, I really liked how you said, you said historically underserved communities. You didn't say BIPOC and LGBT, blah, blah, blah. You used a term that can apply also to underserved white communities, which, people who have seen that, like,
they exist.
I mean, and there's, the class issue is real. And, there are people who belong to this lower class who might happen to be white who do very much feel oppressed, maybe absolutely. Because their accent or their lack of education, those are visible things that people can be oppressed on. So just focusing on people of color, I think is it's counterproductive, because then you're just pissing off this other group of people over here who also need help, and you're just going to get more and more and more pushback from the Trump supporters, because they're like, hey, we're hurting too. Why are you saying we're the bad guys? You don't need to demonize them.
In that town that I was in, there, I happened to deal with a lot of racism, and I dealt with a lot. I was the 1%, and my whole thing was, well, people would tell me, you're going to move to the country in Oregon, around, a town of 1,000 white people with a mixed race family from South LA. People, some of my friends in Oregon were telling me, hey, it might not be the best place to move. And we kind of did it anyway, because our idea was that, well, hey, we can heal and unite everyone through good food and by being good people to everyone. Right. And it's like, no. Not everyone sees it that way. If you don't see it their way politically, if you're not flying a Trump flag, and in some people there are still flying Confederate flags, and they're painting it on the streets near the houses of people of color and people, it's still bad. There's racism. We don't want to work with people like that. We want people who are allies in this movement and who believe that people of every race and faith and religion and sexual orientation, whatever it might be, have access to this food. And that's something that we all can rally behind, is that we need to see change in this generation, because we don't know, if it doesn't get better in this generation and it gets any worse, in my 37 years, we've seen sort of an ebb and flow of good and bad, I think, and we've seen a lot of good, like you were saying as well. But I'm concerned for my children's generation, So it's something, everyone, our ally, we all have, we need allies, and we need.
I just, sorry, Yeah, I just think it's an interesting kind of point to think about is like, how do you be inclusive or at least try? Obviously, like, there's a point at which, like, if somebody is racist or they're not going to accept, they're not going to stand next to or work with in any way, shape, or form somebody who's gay or whatnot. Like, you can't let them in your group. Like, it's just not going to work. Like, they're not gonna play well with everybody else. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, if somebody just comes from a religious background, maybe they have some kind of wrong ideas in their head, but they're willing to open it up. You don't want to shut those people out. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to just say you're wrong because you're Christian. Like
Right.
we want to
Yeah.
we want to figure out a way
Well, I'll tell
to be
you,
welcoming as much as we can, right?
yeah, yeah, and I'll tell you, as someone who I consider myself a Christian, I don't consider myself very religious. I've seen some terrible things happen within certain churches,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen some really, actually, overwhelmingly amazing things happen with what churches are doing. And here in LA, as I've been back here for off and on for about 2 years now, going back and forth to Oregon. But I've seen a lot of support from the church and various religious groups uh, behind this concept of food sovereignty and
Mm-hmm.
using their land and potentially even their roofs and things like that, and even investing potentially in community gardens. So
Yeah,
I'm seeing
churches
this as
have
a push
space,
from all, yeah,
and if
from
they're willing to
all
let you do a
places.
garden there,
Yeah,
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 as long as you're not out there, with your Satan
yeah, yeah,
stuff,
and,
they're pretty
I,
good.
yeah, and I, I totally I totally respect all faiths and all religions and all
Yeah.
walks of life, but I do have my faith, and it is it's something that I hold very close and
Mm-hmm.
strong to my heart as a Christian. A lot of the religious things, and it's like we have the bad apples and the protests who are out there um, inciting violence and inciting violent movements and things like that. Just like that, in every single faith, I think that we have people who are, they hold so strong to their faith that they won't even stand next to someone who doesn't believe how they believe. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe that that's how Christ or Buddha or Krishna or Confucius or any of the pillars of faith out there would have, or Muhammad, any of them would have wanted us to behave,
Mm-hmm.
to our fellow human. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this is an issue that we can all rally around despite our faiths and our economic backgrounds and our race. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
Um, resistance is fertile.
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
um, yeah, no, thank you. I just have tremendous gratitude
Cool.
for being here and being able to speak with you again. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, just one more. We just have another minute, and I forgot to add your links to this project description. What's the links that people can visit you at?
Oh, presently is facebook.com/UrthKynd, UrthKynd,
Uh-huh.
and on Instagram, just UrthKynd, UrthKynd.
Okay, I'm just writing this down. Okay, and then if people want to support what I'm doing, I have a Patreon for as little as $3 a month. You can join the Regenerative Revolution, get behind the scenes info, updates, talk to me in the chat room there. So I hope people join us in the future. Let's get this out there. I mean, I've been a little bit hesitant to like put it out there. I wanted more content and more. I don't know. I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah,
I want to get it all perfect. It's
it's
like,
easy to, yeah, but taking the first step, it's important.
yeah. So, okay, more to come. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
And this has been amazing. I'm really happy for it, and I think you're going to do amazingly well with it. So,
Oh,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Okay.